Pines, and I had a life of Riley, let's say. I would spend weekends in the swamps chasing reptiles and snakes and following this and whatever. I had a fascination for reptiles. I always wanted to be a herpetologist until I got to high school and found out that Latin is no picnic at all. So I kind of got out of that. That idea went out the door. But I noticed that somebody asked me the same question, was, how'd you get into the art? How'd this all happen? I said, it happened in math class. I didn't care for math, so I was always doodling, drawing something. I always did something, and my way I did it, I'd make a line or two. Actually, I started watching, remember Gene London on TV? If you look closely, Gene London had a sketch on the background of what he was going to draw. I knew that when I was at a young age. I said, he's cheating, he's doing something. I said, there's got to be a better way. So I just started sketching things, and I found that I liked to draw. I really did. I liked it a lot more than math, I could tell you that much. But unfortunately, my math grade suffered because of that. I grew up in actually Vincenttown, New Jersey, until I was the age of 17, and then I headed west. And ended up in Washington State first. Then I moved to Montana for a while, and I basically came back for a little bit later, but I eventually ended up in Montana for 32 years. I lived with on the Blackfeet Reservation in Montana for 12 years, and really loved the culture, loved the people. I was adopted into the tribe by the medicine man as his son, and he gave me a Native American name. And I fell in love with the whole culture, the idea. I've been in sweats, been in a lot of ceremonies, and I really loved the whole idea. And I felt something about, there was something happening inside myself. I felt myself really being drawn to that. And so when I started drawing, I said Native Americans were the first things I started working on. And I still do. Mm-hmm. I really do enjoy doing it. You know, I went to school in Bozeman for music, K-12, music education. And I stayed in the area for about a year after I graduated, and then went to grad school in Bowling Green, again for music, jazz composition. I studied technology, and I got into computers pretty heavily at that point. A friend asked me that the other day. I said, how this happened? He says, well, I was watching a video, and Sting from the Police, he was playing an instrument. While he was playing the instrument, the notes were coming up on the computer screen. He was looking at screening. I said, I want that. I gotta have that. That was $80,000. I couldn't afford it. It was called a Synclavier. But I did find an alternative called Finale that would allow me to put music into the computer. So I had to learn how to use a computer very quickly, and I eventually went to for Microsoft certification, Cisco certification, got my degree and a degree in advanced electronics and telecommunications, and also got involved with more computer-oriented things. I'm a classical guitarist by trade. That's what I studied in undergrad, and then I moved into jazz guitar. But the guitar is my main instrument, but I'm also very good at saxophone. I did symphonies, I've written operas, I've written string quartets, and tons of music. And when I finally got a computer, it was much easier. If I can sketch it at the time, I always carry a sketchbook with me all the time. Seriously, no matter where I'm going, except to like the grocery store, obviously. But it's interesting. But I find that certain type of, there's times where I said, I wish I had a sketchbook, and sure enough, so now I make a habit of keeping one in my car, or if I have my, in the wintertime with pockets, I put one in it and carry it with me. I do watercolor underpainting, and which I learned through one of my favorite artists reading and watching the video. His name is Richard McKinley. I found him to be one of the best artists I've seen in pastel. I love what he does. Another's Albert Handel. They are all the good, great pastel artists. And so I'm reading, I'm watching, I'm seeing, they're all doing the same thing. I said, there's got to be something in that. So I did it, and it worked fine. I liked it the way it turned out, and been happy with it. And I've worked with gouache, as the closest I come to using anything like that, only because I'd seen it as an artist I admire called Ray Balkwill out of England, and he uses gouache in some of his paintings with pastels. It's phenomenal work, and I said, I'm going to try that as well. So I got a couple tubes of that. One of my favorite artists is Wolf Kahn. He uses very bright colors, and some of his works look very simplistic. And his composition is good. And I think that's the main thing I look for when I go down to a place like White Spog or Viking Village or anywhere. I look for the composition. I have too many boats. I've got 15 boats in a row. I want 5. How do I do that? And I take this boat out, take this boat. I put in the ones I want. It's maybe not what you're seeing if you went there. That's not there. Yes, it is when I was there because I made it there. By my reading and experimenting, I find that you put your hard pastel down first. Because once you put the soft pastel on, there's no way you can get hard pastel on it. It's because your paper has tooth in it. And after you fill that tooth up with the soft pastel, there's no place for it to go. It kind of lays on the top, it falls off or whatever. And so I always work with my hard pastels first. Pastel pencils I love for the detail, my detail work. Some of my fine lines, I can sharpen them. I sharpen them with a razor, and then sand them down to a fine point. And then I'll break them off, but I get the point I need. But I have a lot of pastel pencils as well. They're more of a they're hard, but they're not as hard as a hard pastel. So they're in between a soft and a hard pastel. Paper is the most important part of pastel. Paper is the most important part of most art type of anything you can think of in art. Watercolor, like I said, pastel, charcoal. The paper you use is the most important thing, which is ironic because for a couple of years I never thought paper was that important. It says on the paper I'm buying at Michael's or wherever I'm shopping, it says pastel paper, charcoal paper, it says watercolor paper. That's what I want. Until I actually started looking at some of the specifications on the paper. And I found that there's hard press paper, cold press paper, there's pastel paper that you buy that it's specifically for pastel, that's all. Or paper just for charcoal, just for this, just for that. And the list goes on and on and on and on. And they've been making paper for hundreds of years until people have perfected that idea. Like recently I just found the best paper for charcoal is something called printmaking paper. I didn't know that until I read this book I'm reading, which is phenomenal. It says you gotta buy printmaking paper. So I bought some printmaking paper. And it was a little pricey and I had to special order it, but I think I just arrived and I haven't even touched it yet, but I'd made a few marks and I went, where has this been? I've been looking, this is what I've been looking for my whole life for charcoal. I said, I finally found it. But it all came back to reading. If I hadn't read about it, I wouldn't have known. I had no idea. I just used what I had. But I think that paper is the most important thing. And how they make it, and how it's made, and what coating it has. It's very, very complex. And that's why I want my experts. I see what one of my experts people I admire, what are they using? So you have the hard sticks. Now, between the sticks and the soft pastels, which is there's different manufacturers of those, and some of them are softer than others. Like some are like butter, some are a little bit tougher, some take a little bit more texture. They got to have more texture on the paper. But pastels, I find, are in between the soft pastels and the hard sticks, pastel sticks. And there's a lot of different companies out there have been making pastels, and they've been around forever, pastels. And it's ironic, like during Degas, he didn't have that many colors to choose from, and they combined colors and made things work. Where now I was looking for a pastel that was a color of copper, because I was doing a copper vase. I said, do they make something like that? By golly, they do. We have to special order it from a person, Diane Thompson, and she's, where she's located. But they do have a copper color. They have two different flavors of it even. So anything you can think of, I think, is there. You just have to really search it out. And sometimes I've done complete pastels and just hard pastels. And I've done complete ones where I skipped the hard pastels and just went to the soft. But I would generally have a watercolor underpainting, or the walnut ink or acrylic ink underpainting, so I have some kind of a basis behind it, what color I'm kind of adding for. That's a whole nother field you could get into, is about what type of color, primary color, secondary color, all that stuff. And ironically, I've never had any type of art training, so I just read all this stuff, how to do this. I've never had any lessons. I've never done anything like that. I just do it. One of the best advice I ever received from another artist was, practice on what you do, what you're the worst at, what you're not doing well. The more you practice that, before you know it, that will be up in the same area. And so portraits is my weakest area, so I'm concentrating on portraits. But I go anywhere I can. I love Batstow. Stafford Forge, I love. Another great place. I also go to the village here in Tuckerton, Seaport Village. I love that area too. Some really nice spots there. So I enjoy that. I'll take Seaport Village for example. If I'm walking through that area, if something makes me look twice, that's something I need to worry about. That's something that's got my eye. Also, when I'm at Stafford Village, if I go to an area, I saw a tree that was very weird shaped, and I went by. I left. Well, every place I went, I kept thinking about that stupid tree I saw back at where I first came in, and I ended up drawing it. Eventually, I went back and I did it because there was something about that I knew I had to get down on paper. If you actually really physically sit and look at a tree, it's amazing what the detail you can find on specific trees. Some trees I think are downright, I don't know, they don't have character, don't have a soul, but some are just stand out. It's like, oh my goodness, I've got to get a picture of this for sure. My neighbor has a tree across the street from me that the top of it's red and the bottom's yellow and there's a green part too. I said, oh my goodness, I had to get a picture of that for sure before it really changes. I go to White's Bog. Actually, White's Bog is one of my favorite places to go. And I'll spend all day there and maybe do four or five different sketches. But now my plein air work feeds my studio work. If I bring stuff back which is not done or not completed, I'll start working on that. Also, I like Viking Village. Oh, that's a haven right there with all the boats. I'll take 80 or 90 pictures or 100 pictures, snapshots. I want to be able to get the idea across on the picture, but if I don't complete that area the way it should be, or I'm missing something, it's you, the viewer. You should be able to fill that in with your eyes and your mind. So I'm not trying to get. I do a lot of realism type, and someone's told me, "What type of painter are you?" I say I'm a realistic impressionist. So I get the idea, that's a boat, it's in the water, and some of my earlier boats were very realistic, but I'm moving away from that. I think that's what the goal of most artists, I think, is. I'm not sure. For me, it is. I got to the point with guitar, and classical guitar, any type of guitar, there was very little I couldn't do on a guitar. But I never really felt the same satisfaction. I don't know why. I could play this very well, could do this, do that. But once I started doing art, I felt something else happening. I felt like a deeper meaning, I guess. I don't know really what it was. But I felt like, okay, I can play guitar. You ever hear me play guitar? No, you haven't. Here's my art. This is what I do. My brother's a big game hunter. He goes all over the world and hunts. And he got a Cape buffalo. And so for Christmas, I did a pastel of a Cape buffalo on an ancient map that I bought somewhere, and he loved it. I do wildlife. I do very little, mostly for my brother. I do a lot of deer and stuff like that because they're everywhere. But I don't know. I'm more drawn to. I like the landscapes. I don't know why. Something about it I connect with.
Is there a peacefulness about it that?
I think that maybe that's it. In a peacefulness in a place like New Jersey where everybody's rush. It's like slow down, take a look at what you're missing. You're missing all this. I'll say this publicly. I've never been happy with anything I've ever finished. Never. I mean, there's always something I could have changed and done better. Always. And ironically, everything that I like, I've sold only a couple pieces, really. And the pieces I sold, my girlfriend wanted to keep, put on the wall. And I said, well, you pay me what they're going to pay me and you can have it. Well, she has, right now, probably a dozen of my pieces on the wall somewhere in the house. But I've never really been, because I look at them all the time, so I look at it and say, I could have changed this, I don't like the way this looks now. I have students who I talk to and they want to go into teaching. I say, what's the first requirement? I say patience. It's very important to have patience with teaching because the situation puts you into that atmosphere of dealing with 22 different personalities every single day for 4 or 5 times a day or twice or 3 times. So you learn very quickly. Every semester when my new semester starts, everybody signs up for video game design. They say, oh, video game design. They walk in, they're ready to play games and they're ready to do this. And I said, number one, the reading requirements for this course most people don't want. There's so much reading, there's so much writing, there's so much things that they have to do. It's not, we play games, we do it between major projects. I got smart this year. I divided all the classes into groups of people. I said, you have to treat this like a business. So every single day, every single week, we'll have a new boss in your group. That boss's job is to keep you on track as part of the design team. And if you're not, they're going to talk to you. Think about this. I'm preparing these students for the reality of the fact that, you know what? Video games is a billion-dollar industry. Many companies are looking for new people up and coming. They bring in new blood and new ideas. And I said, well, treat this like that. So you're the boss this week, Joe, and you're going to basically talk to your group of 4 other people in your group, and you're going to talk to them we meet Monday and Wednesday. So Wednesday session, 15 minutes before class over, you have a board meeting. And your job is to talk to people sternly who are not doing their job, see where you are in the project, and then give me a report about how your group is doing. I said, well, that's part of the job. I said, this is part of the whole experience, because when you get out in the real world, guess what? You're going to have somebody you have to work for. They're not going to say, they don't care what games you're playing. They want to know what games you're working on that's going to make them money. And that's your job there for them. So now I want you to treat this like a real job and say, I'm the boss today, and you're not doing your work. I want more improvement, or I'm going to find somebody else. You have to turn in a superhero and anti-hero, and you have to have full-size body sketches of these, 9 by 12. And basically, you need to turn it. We have a bio page, like a sheet from. I took a police department sheet and actually modified it for somebody, the suspect sheet, and I modified it to fit these characters. So you have a good guy and a bad guy. Okay, once you get the character design done, you have 2 sketches, a bad guy and a good guy, a superhero, anti-hero, and that's not a guy with a cape and a hood and a mask. I said, you have to think outside the box. There's enough Supermen, there's enough Spider-Men. I want to see something different. And they do that. After they do the character design, then they have to write a story where the 2 interact. I said, this is all part of the video game design experience, because you're going to get all that in the real world out there. For these companies are looking for, well, I need a story writer, I need a character designer, I need a rigger, I need somebody who can program. I said, you're going to fall into this category where you're only a 2-year school. So you're going to have to find somebody to work with. When we first started sketching in the classroom, the first thing I had them do was to draw a common object they have in their house. It could be a vase, it could be anything. Some people drew their cell phones, some people drew their TV sets, whatever. When I saw the first day, I said, oh, okay, we got to work on this, we got to work on this. But some are already at that point where they're going, oh my goodness, this is a working cell phone, or this work. I could see that. I saw the students already coming in. The students I was worried about, I'm more concerned about, was the students with nothing, that had lines that kind of looked like this, or kind of like a piece of fruit. From there I went to, okay, now draw your hand. I had them hold their hand out like this. I said, I don't want the turkey hand. I said, I want the hand on an angle. Bring me this. The students that were struggling with the common items, I started to see improvement. I started to see, oh, that does look like a hand. By golly, I see the 5 fingers, there's a hand. But so I always encouraged them more. I was trying to push more towards them. And then when I had the students say, oh, this is I didn't do a good job, I say, stop right there. I said, I do not want to hear that type of talk. Nothing negative. I want to hear positive talk from yourself to me. I said, I will not tolerate negative talk, even about yourself. And so they stopped, and immediately everybody's pictures went up and elevated as far as their quality of work. They seemed to take more time and more pride in their own work. I said, I did it. And that's what I wanted to do. I teach another class for another teacher with middle school children as part of a grant program. And I had them sketch. I said, does everybody know where the Pine Barrens is? And they said, no. I said, do you drive south from Tom's River on the Parkway? Oh yeah, all the time. You're in the Pine Barrens. Did you know that? Really? I said, these are middle school kids. And I said, yeah, next time you drive on the south of the Parkway, look out both sides of the window, you're in the Pine Barrens. Oh, so the next class, several of them said, we went south, and by golly, I saw that Pine Barren thing you're talking about. It was funny to hear that. I said, now draw me a pine tree. They said, well, they weren't like a Christmas tree. They were different. I said, yes, that's it. Tell me what you saw. And they did that. I said, that's it. It was fantastic. I believe in the day you stop learning is the day you start dying. So I'm not going to do that. I love to read. I love reading, like I said, and watch everything I can. And I think every artist should be doing that. Everyone that, is there anybody out there really is happy with perfectly with exactly what they did? I don't know. I know I'm not. I want to get better all the time. if it's nothing else, it's for myself. And I'm not a perfectionist, obviously, because I got stuff on the wall that I say, I don't like this. Because I don't take it down and say, no, you can't put this up on the wall anymore. But I haven't reached that point. I say, the one picture I did sell, one of the first ones I sold, I did 5 or 6 copies of it. Started it over from scratch. And I still like the original better. I don't know why, but I can't get back to that. I'm trying to get back to it. I'll probably do it again. I just love doing it. There's an old saying I always like, said, writers write, artists paint every day. You should paint every day, you should write every day. Whatever it is you do well, or not even do well, something you enjoy doing, do it every day, no matter what. Everybody says, I don't have the time. Make the time. I get up at 5 to do what I love so that I have the time, so that I can do it. I think it's so important, very much so.
Support public libraries. Like, share, and subscribe for more great videos.